title of this talk is Rebooting Bioresorbable Scaffold. It's a pleasure to meet everyone on this auspicious day of the Republic Day celebration here in India. Just wanted to spend a quick minute on a decade of innovation here in Merrill. As you can see, as much as this slide is a little busy, but across the 4 business platforms that we run in Merrill, cardiovascular division is leading the clinical research and the R&D work with 24 or more than 24 technology platforms. I'm not even counting the product platforms. We also have a very robust orthopedics department where we have more than 10 platforms, a large portfolio in endosurgical range of technologies and in vitro diagnostics. The last 2020, we were able to launch the RT-PCR test here in India, and more than 100 technology platforms, all indigenously developed. The latest in the sequence is the technology we are all familiar with, the MyValve transcatheter aortic valve replacement system. So it continues to excite here in terms of investments, in terms of clinical research, and taking these technologies not just across India, but globally. And with this, I'd like to share a little bit of an internal belief on where we stand in terms of philosophy and how we are headed out for bioresorbable scaffold. We at Merrill believe BRS is an intuitive and a sophisticated advancement in treating occlusive coronary artery disease. The 100 micron strut thickness MIRES is truly the next generation technology. And we feel we can meaningfully treat at least a specific patient cohort. And I've had an interaction with many clinicians, and this happens to be true. Very interestingly, the 3-year long-term follow-up of MIRES-1 study, which had 108 patients, and MIRES-1 Extend, which had 64 patients, demonstrated positive and acceptable clinical safety and efficacy. So this is a technology we can trust. Moreover, Merrill is committed to further robust clinical research in order to reinforce the clinical confidence in the BRS. Very importantly, Shahid and I, we have the permission from the Merrill board. We have committed upfront resources, so time, money, energy is going to be invested in the bioresorbable scaffold. Back in Vapi, we've indigenously developed an impressive range of BRS, and I'll come to that in a bit, from intracranial to infrapopliteal treatment methodology. The MIRES launch today is an important milestone for all of us. We feel we'll need to have a collaborative scientific approach. So your support in getting this segment to be successful is going to be very, very, very critical. We've been through this in the past, and I don't wish to spend too much time, but these are some of the known BRS pitfalls. Lesions which are extremely complex, CTOs, highly calcific, very small vessels, or extremely tortuous, have not done very well so far with BRS, and that leaves us with other lesions. And we realize that despite everything across clinical spectrum, the ultimate desire in stenting still remains our possibility to uncage the vessel wall. And we said, if this is so intuitively important for all of us, then can we work towards a technology that actually helps us do it? So when we were looking at polylactic acid as the platform, we said 14 key points will be required to shift the technology more towards conventionality and to ensure the primary outcome of not leaving anything behind. And we wrote down points around architecture, around engineering, around chemistry and biocompatibility of the device in order to improve clinical outcomes. So the whole idea revolved around, can we move this arrow towards the left of the screen? So on one side is a classic example of a drug-eluting stent, which stands on the outer spectrum of metallic platform. So about 91 microns of strut thickness, and a cobalt chromium platform eluting a limus category of drug, and the erstwhile well-known Absorb platform, which is about 150 microns. And we said what comes in this space in between is what will describe how MIRES will be. So a hybrid stent geometry, a 100 micron strut thickness, a low profile of 1.2 millimeter, an ability to see the scaffold much better over the fluoroscopic screen with 3 radiopaque markers on each end, and a large size matrix. Very important, our possibility to store the scaffold at a regular ambient cath lab temperature. And we started everything afresh back in Vapi. So right from polylactic acid granules to extrusion of the tubing, the axial expansion of the tubing, the laser cutting, which is done using femtolasers, implantation of the radiopaque markers, the drug coating and the crimping, and eventually the sterilization and packaging. Everything is done in-house. I must also qualify here that the Miras manufacturing is a sight to be seen. Unlike any other drug-eluting stent manufacturing, the Miras is manufactured in a clean room. So the particulate at the onset of manufacturing or the bioburden level is much different than what you would see in a regular drug-eluting stent. And as an outcome is what you all remember so well is the hybrid honeycomb, hybrid cell design, closed cells on the edges, open cell along the length of the stent, characterized by these couplets of triaxial radiopaque markers at either end. The scaffold is a true 100 microns strut thickness. So it's a polylactic acid backbone with a coating of PDLLA plus sirolimus. The drug coating of sirolimus happens to be the same as that we use in Biomime. And the scaffold then incorporates all these classic features required out of a stent system: sufficient radial force, low recoil, and the scaffold to artery ratio comes down to a meaningful 24%. High vessel conformability because of the design and optimal side branches ensured. We're able to validate about 63 sizes. So from diameters of 2.5 up to 4.5 and lengths up to 40 are possible to be manufactured. Very importantly, the top coat is thin and the cumulative drug release profiling comes to around 120 days. So 6 months of drug release. We start off with a high molecular weight, about 275 to 300 Daltons of polylactic acid. So by the time it comes in your hand and you deploy the scaffold in your patient, there's a gradual loss in molecular weight, which happens over six months. There is a simultaneous loss in radial force, which is expected as the scaffold gets more hydrolyzed. And then there is this spike in crystallinity, which is also very natural because there is a selective dissolution of the amorphous material over the crystalline material, but this spike does not result in any kind of an inflammatory point at that end. Here are some very interesting pictures of OCT I have borrowed from Dr. Greg Kaluza at Skirball. And we deployed a series of Miras scaffolds in porcine coronary arteries in order to understand how the degradation appears. So the day zero is very classic. You see these thin struts nested nicely across the vessel wall. Over a period of time, you see the rectangular boxes try to start dissolving, and over a period of 3 years, you practically do not see much. But what is important is when you look at this 2-year and 3-year OCT, you see this ghost effect. And we were very, very keen to understand and characterize what these ghost effects are. And we identified them as other boxes. So the interesting part here was to actually explant these vessels and send them to another lab in Canada. And selectively, we are actually able to do extraction of whatever is that other box and quantify. And we know at this moment that about 2 years and 3 years, about 98% of scaffold has degraded. So this is a very important feature in this whole sequence. We also work closely with CVPath, with Dr. Renu Virmani, in order to understand the biocompatibility of the device. So in comparison to the Absorb, you see less of inflammation, and the healing response is fairly similar to what one would see just out of deploying it regular porcine coronary arteries. So coming to some of the classic features of the Miras scaffold is the strut thickness, which is going to pleasantly surprise you. This is a true 100 micron strut, nicely nestled against the vessel wall. And we've seen about 35 plus technologies in the time when BRS were actually in vogue. The crossing profile comes down to a meaningful 1.2 millimeters, and the radial force remains intact because of this classic hybrid cell design structure with closed cells on the edges. We wanted to make the scaffold a little more visible under fluoroscopy. So this whole concept of 2 triaxial radiopaque markers around the edges of the scaffold literally gives us a virtual tubing effect. Long after the scaffold is gone, we can still see exactly where the scaffold was, and they light up nicely. On OCT, you can see on proximal and distal front, these are 2 footprints out of these 2 double elliptical radiopaque markers as you see on the screen. So it becomes a little more easy. One must remember both on the proximal and the distal edge, there is a polylactic acid scaffold. So 1.3 millimeter on each end is what we must remember while we are doing the post-dilatation. We also realize that in order to get the scaffold deployed conventionally across long lesions, one typically would have to do an overlapping. In this situation, we actually can avoid an overlapping. So a tip-to-tip deployment of a Miras 100 is quite possible. It's very simple. The distal scaffold proximal radiopaque markers and the distal radiopaque marker balloon of the proximal scaffold just need to be superimposed. And as you undergo the expansion, you will see a new cell forms. And once we do a post-dilatation at the junction, it's very easy to get the classic tip-to-tip deployment without overloading the vessel with a overlapping stent. Side branch access remains quite possible. The struts do not fracture. Also, a 3 millimeter scaffold can nicely be taken up to 4 without fracturing the scaffold. Though it is possible, we recommend a 0.5 beyond the nominal in order to keep the struts intact. Quickly coming to the launch philosophy of the scaffold. The intention is to have a sequential stage launch. The idea is to have strong clinical application support from Merrill. So we have a large team of clinical application specialists who would basically be assisting in cath labs as and when required. Very crucial is going to be proper patient selection, and I'm not going to talk more about it. Experts in this field will speak. But the intention is to have the use of the PSP toolkit, rely as much as possible on imaging, IVUS, and OCT, and ensure that we have optimal post-treatment outcomes. The overall impact here is to generate strong clinical evidence, share clinical experience, and encourage scientific publication. Eventually, the idea is to influence treatment guidelines, and if we can make a mark at the ESC level, that will be an important job accomplished. So here is the PSP toolkit. The toolkit is essentially assembled in order to encourage pre and post dilatation. So as you can see from the picture, there is a 1 unit of Meres, which is as a part of the toolkit, which comes along with 2 lineage non-compliant balloons. The non-compliant balloons are complementary to the kit. The shelf life is fairly long, and the devices can be stored at ambient cath lab temperature. So the toolkit is going to be the crucial part of this whole conversation. This is how the pre-dilatation and the post-dilatation balloons remain. So the lengths of 10 and 15, and they come in diameters and lengths according to the diameter and length of the Miras 100 that you choose. Just a quick word about how we intend to take the future of BRS development. So we said this clinical plasticity of polylactic acid can be extended from intracranial up to infrapopliteal. At Merrill, we have the ability to churn out these technologies. It only remains to be seen how our first project moves on to become a clinical success. The peripheral platforms have already come along a long way. So we have the iliac and the subclavian stent, the Credence BRS. The interlace BRS is a very interesting concept, is more like the erstwhile wall stent. It is a braided polylactic acid stent. And the Credence BTK BRS is already undergone the clinical trial phase. It's for infrapopliteal lesions. But if we say the entire spectrum looks more like a BRS carnival. So there is a Meres 100 Protect, which is for STEMI patients. There is a Meriskin, which is a covered BRS graft. And there is a Meres Morph, which is a tapering bioresorbable scaffold. We are very actively working on Floret BRO, which is a vascular occluder, and a non-vascular PDO made out of polytaxanone. This ends my slide. I actually borrowed this picture from our CEO in South African business. This is a true picture of a herd of elephants. And as the saying in South Africa goes, if you want to go a short distance, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you all go together. I request you all and humbly request you to join us on this long journey. Together, we can make this successful. Thank you so much for your time and attention.